all very welcome, and I'm glad that Louise has already thanked the various people and entities that have been involved in putting this together. Just to say, DFI has been steadily improving and upgrading its investment in the whole European thing, European stroke international thing. Louise majors on it in here. There's usually an intern or one or two people who are also involved in it. We've developed what we call the European network from people across the organisations who have an interest, and lots of people in many of our organisations are already involved in European work. They're involved. If they're there's probably a European migraine group. There's muscular dystrophy. There's all sorts of different European groups, and often people are involved in those. So it's also an opportunity to give them a space at home to better, well, to consolidate and give them a bit of comfort around what they're racing off to in Brussels or someplace, and then coming back to the madness of their day-to-day job. We're members of the European Association of Service Providers since it was founded in 1996. We were one amongst the founders of it. We're also members of the European Disability Forum. We have recently taken membership with the European movement here in Ireland, and we're also involved with the European Anti-Poverty Network in Ireland and also in Europe. So that's by way of just giving you an idea that we're seeing the European thing as central, and you'll actually get that from today's work, how the EU 2020 strategy and the European semester, and God love them, they're great for coming up with things that you can't, the name doesn't, what's on the tin doesn't tell you what's in the tin. They're bureaucrats out and out. So, but these things, and particularly the EU 2020 strategy, and Thomas will be going into that, is actually hot-wired into our national budgets. I'll say no more about that. It's not that it tips around them. It's hot-wired into it. So what happens in Europe? If Europe goes all austerity, and that's the answer to the issues, or if it takes a different turn, that directly affects the people that live in every corner of this country that have disabilities. That's a big learning for all of us. But so how do we deal with that? The fiscal compact, the austerity, that's the policy. Yeah. Now, I spoke to, he's no longer the head of the Disability Union, Johan van Gresendaal. Okay, he's moved on to something else now. At a conference we were at last March in Germany, I didn't get to speak to him in the Q&A, but afterwards I went up to him and he says, look, there is a lost decade. As if he was talking about, okay, the shop has just closed, you can't buy your chocolate till the morning. And I said to him, I said, how do I tell that to the parents of a child of 10 that's been diagnosed with muscular dystrophy? How do I tell that to someone of our age who's dealing with a parent who has been diagnosed with something or other? A lost decade makes sense for, and I don't mean to be unkind, for bureaucrats. It does not make sense. It's obscene when it comes to the lives that you can write off. It's a lost decade. And I don't know if you were there at the General Assembly last Saturday when his replacement, Ms. Cabral, answering a question from one of the delegates from Romania, who had said, look, children are dying in Romania because the health system and the supports are not there for them. And that the EU policies are part of that, the whole austerity thing. And she very honestly, in my view, in a sense not very pleasantly, but very honestly, says, yes, this is happening. So really what I'm trying to say is that what happens, what the Commission, the Council decide in Europe actually impacts directly here, Romania, Bulgaria, all over the Union. Okay, there are different problems in different places. I'm going to now change a little tack and mention somebody called Nicky English. He was a famous Tipperary hurler. And I heard him one time say, when you go up for a ball, it's contested and you go up to get it, you mustn't be thinking about whether you're going to catch that ball or not. What you need to be thinking about is, when I catch it, what am I going to do with it? Who do I lay it off to? Where do I place it? You have to have the training, the skill, the confidence that you're going to win that ball. You won't win them all, but you can't be worrying about whether you're going to catch it or not. You have to be so practiced. And I want to relate that to what we're doing today. What we're doing today is actually learning the skills of the EU semester game. And we need to be very clear that we don't get caught up as experts about the techniques of the game and the different skills of the game. We certainly need those. We need to develop a fluidity. Thomas will be going through that, the early part from November on to May each year, what's happening with 3 different documents or processes and how it feeds into budgets. So let's not learn your trade. And all of us have to keep going back over learn our trade, but don't get caught up in the names of the trade. What is it about? What it's about is making sure that the 600,000 people in Ireland with disabilities and the people who next year will face disability for the first time. It's not the same people. It's not a fixed, it's moving. People faced it this year that thankfully never knew about it before. And the same will happen next year. That's what this is about. And those of the 80 million people across the European Union who all face the same anxiety, no matter what country they live in. And so that's the ball we have to keep our eye on. And we have to speak from our knowledge and information through our on-the-ground work. And building up, we're not good at this, building up our information systems to be able to lob the information, the facts as we know them. There's a number of processes. I'll stop at this. There are a number of processes. There's the European Disability Strategy, which in itself feeds into the UN Convention. There's our own process to feed into and give commentary on the UN Convention. Here in Ireland, our National Disability Strategy is regarded by the state as their way of implementing the UN Convention. We need to speak the truth, honesty, straightforward information. This is what's happening, people that I'm working with, people with this condition, that condition, or whatever it is. Maybe the government says this, but I'm simply saying to you, this is what happens. And we have to if we don't, the people in this room and any other of you, if we don't sharpen up and start talking the plain facts, and Thomas knows more about these things, like the different desk officers that deal with different parts of the, whether it's the UN Convention or the Disability Strategy or whatever, and when they come out in May with the country-specific recommendations and say Ireland should do this, that and the other this year in next year's budget, we should be able to say, you know what, do you know what that's going to mean? If you keep going that way, or if you don't have a bit of something else in it. We can't do that without doing our homework outside of the semester, if you like, outside of all the technical stuff, which is the people we know, the people in our organisations, and then we start to try and, as best we can in DFI, build up that. So let your heads go right into, it is a workshop, it's a class, you're supposed to learn stuff, right? So I'm not going to quote that, right? And you'll think you have it going home today and you won't have it when you go to write it or explain it to somebody, and then you come back to us and we'll get it, and we'll try and maybe ask people to share their emails and stuff so you make pals and help each other with stuff. So you have to get your head into that, but at the same time you have to keep your head in another place. This is about how we're going to represent the needs, the issues, the problems and the opportunities of real people in Ireland and how they're faring with the European set of policies that are there now. Okay, thanks for that.